Hey there, it's Chrissy Key Rollins here, and this year I'm taking my Holistic Healing Circle through a deep dive into the creative process and sharing weekly videos focused on guiding you step by step to understanding what it really takes to create what you desire in life so that you can overcome challenges and limitations that have been holding you back from creating what you desire most in your life. In this video, I'm going to be sharing insights around two things that are a must when it comes to creating lasting change, followed by a tutorial on how to create these cute little decorative hearts. So if you want to see that process, then stick around after the quick chat and let's get started. Okay, so last week I shared the starting point, like the secrets behind what creates lasting change. So if you missed that, then definitely go back and watch that video after today's video. And today I'm talking about the two things that are a must. They're just an absolute must. And for me, anytime that I find myself not making change, not taking action, I remind myself of these two things, and it helps me to shift back into a better, more aligned perspective and get back into action. The first thing that is required, it's absolutely necessary, like every single time, regardless of what level of consciousness you bring this in at, every single time that you create change, this is a factor that is at play. This factor is that you must be willing to face worst case scenario. And that's really what stops us from creating change, what stops us from taking action a lot of time. Fear of facing worst case scenario. Well, when you are really synced up to a full understanding of who you are, what you came here to do, and understanding that you're part of this divine unfolding that is happening in every moment, you begin to realize that there is nothing that can be put into your path that can actually stop you from doing what you came here to do. And your fear of facing worst case scenario will keep you repeating old patterns, repeating old habits, repeating old cycles that are totally outdated and that you need to just ditch and move on from, all in an attempt to avoid facing worst case scenario. When you connect to the fact that there is nothing that can be added to you or taken away from you that can ever change your value, when you understand that you are divinely guided, protected, provided for, supported, then you begin to understand that there actually is no fear in facing the worst case scenario. And when you do take a logical look at worst case scenario, you can begin to realize that even if you face worst case scenario, you can still come up with a survival plan. You can still figure out how to move forward on the other side. So taking time to realize that worst case scenario is actually something that you're fully equipped to handle, and that worst case scenario, even if it happens, will actually not eliminate you. And if it does eliminate you, then you're not here to worry about these things, right? And if it doesn't eliminate you, you will realize how resilient you are, how resourceful you are, how much you have within you and around you that will put you back on track, usually a better track than where it is that you started from before you ran into worst case scenario. But the majority of the time, I'm going to say this from my own personal experience for the past 15 years of taking these concepts, integrating them into my life, testing them out day in and day out, every single time, 100% of the time, I have never, ever had to actually face worst case scenario. And in the times that what I didn't want manifested, came about, was what I had to deal with on the other side, it was never worst case scenario. But whatever did get thrown my way, even if it didn't align with my preferences, I found that I survived that too. I found a way, shifted my mood, whatever it was that was needed to get myself moving forward. I had what I needed within me. What I didn't have within me was provided around me. And you're going to find the same thing over and over again. But you have to be willing to face worst case scenario. If you're willing to face worst case scenario, a lot of times it doesn't show up. And even if something similar to it does happen, you will find that you are fully equipped, but you won't ever know unless you take that next step and are willing to face worst case scenario. The other thing that is absolutely essential for creating change in your life and really owning and mastering the creative process is that you have to take 100% responsibility for everything you currently have and currently don't have in your life. I know radical self-responsibility is not the first thing that the ego, the personality likes to sign up for. However, it is absolutely essential. You have to give up the blame and shame game. We'll talk more about that later on as we dive deeper into this creative process, but understand that you have to take 100% responsibility for whatever is happening in your world. Now, if that seems a little bit daunting, you're not quite sure exactly how to begin that journey, definitely hop over and check out the Holistic Healing Circle. I'm going to drop a link right there in the bottom of this video screen so that you can get support in being able to understand that taking self-responsibility is not something that victimizes you, limits you, or restrains you. It actually is the key to your liberation. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there blaming circumstances, victimizing yourself, and stopping yourself from moving forward in the way that you really desire. Maybe we'll dive more deeply into that notion further on into this series, but for today, I want you to remember those two things. One, you got to be willing to face worst case scenario, because whenever you do, you're going to find out that you're fully equipped and that you're going to survive on the other side anyway, if it even comes. And two, that change and creating lasting change, it really requires you to take 100% responsibility for everything you currently have and don't have in your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you're responsible for the actions of others and the circumstances of outside events. It just means that what you allow in your environment is your responsibility. Okay. We'll pick up this creative conversation again next week, so stay tuned for that. And now if you want to stick around, I'm going to show you how to make these super sweet little decorative hearts. It's a really easy experiment to go through just to, flex your muscle and start to build some strength in the creative process and to learn how your mind starts to work whenever you go through a creative process. When you can make something with your hands, it will help to give you insights into what goes through your mind consciously and subconsciously whenever you are trying to create anything externally, outwardly in your world. So to make these sweet little heart decorations, you can make them a single color like this. I'm going to show you both ways, or you can make it a two-tone color like this. This one's got white and pink. I don't know if the color might be washing out a little bit. Here we go. Here's a white and red one. This one's going to show up better. There we go. White and red one. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to make these and show you a couple different colors. So let me go over the supplies list that you are going to need. First of all, you're going to need some yarn, either one color or two color. Today, I am working with a red and a pink, and the other example that I'm going to show you is a red and a purple. I myself, when doing crafts like this, I really prefer cotton yarn, but you could use acrylic as well. I just find, we're going to use glue for this process. I just find that the glue soaks in better with the cotton and holds better with the cotton. If you only have acrylic yarn, by all means, go ahead and give this a go. You might just find it takes a little bit more of a drying process or a little bit more gluing involved, but you can totally do this with acrylic yarn and get really, really great results. If you do have cotton yarn, that's my personal preference, and I find it works just a little bit better. So you're going to need yarn, and in particular, if you're just going to do one of these, you're going to need 2 lengths of 5 foot of whatever color it is that you want to use. If you're going to use 2 colors, you can just make 5 foot of each. You can probably even mix this up and use more colors if you wanted to. So you're going to need 5 feet of each. And then I also like to make a little hook so that I can hang these up, a little hanger. And for that, you're going to need another 6 inches of material for that little loop that we'll put on at the end. Okay, you're going to need yarn. You're going to need some push pins. I just picked these up from the dollar store, just clear little push pins. You're going to also need some cardboard or something that you can create a template on so that we can wrap the yarn around it. Make sure that the cardboard that you use is thick enough that if you push your push pin in, that it will not stick out the other side. So I have actually 2 pieces of cardboard that I am going to tape together in order to make my little jig for getting the heart into place. So you're going to need some cardboard or wood, anything that you can tack into little push pins or little nails in order to hold the yarn in place while we're waiting for the glue to dry. So I've got 2 pieces of cardboard here that I'm going to show you how I put those together. And to put them together, I use packing tape. So you'll need some clear packing tape, I'm sure. Duct tape or masking tape would work as well. I just use the clear packing tape and I find that that works really, really well. You will also need, of course, scissors for cutting your yarn. You're going to need a ruler for measuring out the 5-foot lengths and the 6 inches that you're going to use. And you're also going to need some glue. Now you can use whatever kind of white school glue. This is called Glue Wall. It doesn't have to be this brand, just your basic white school glue. And you're going to need a little bit of water so that you can water the glue down. So we've got yarn, scissors, ruler, push pins, a template for making the shape that you want. Since we're using a heart, I happen to have this little wooden cutout heart that I'm going to be using for my template. You don't have to have a little wooden cutout heart. You can draw a heart on a piece of paper and that will work just fine. I will tell you that this heart is about 2.5 inches, almost 2 3/4 inches in height, and probably about that same, yeah, about 3 inches wide. So totally up to you. You can do it bigger, you can do it smaller. I really like this size. I really like how the ornaments turn out, the little decorations turn out whenever I'm done with them. So this is what I'm going to use. So a template for the shape that you're making, you'll probably want like a little craft stick or a skewer or something like that. Even a knife will work just fine. This is just to stir your glue because you're going to water that glue down a little bit before you use it. And I think that that's it. So let's get going. What we're going to do in the first step is we're going to create a jig, like a little template, in order to hold the string into place while it is drying. So I'm going to show you one that already has the string dried on it. So as you can see, I took 2 pieces of cardboard, wrapped them around with some clear tape, and then I just stuck my push pins straight into it, and it works perfectly. And I actually was able to make a couple different patterns. That's what the different colored dots are. So I know where to put my push pins, so I can make some different shapes on this same one over and over again. I can use both sides of it. So if I wanted to put more push pins on this side and get 2 sides working at one time, you totally can. We're just going to do one for today just to show you the process of it, and then you can take this and run with it and do whatever you want with it. So first we're going to take our 2 pieces of cardboard that we have, and we're going to put them together where they're just laying flat against each other. And then we're going to take clear packaging tape and wrap it all the way around so that this becomes one unit that is protected by the clear protective tape, so that whenever we put glue on it, you won't stick to the cardboard and you can easily just remove it, wipe it off, keep right on going with your day. So I'll do that real quick. Okay, so once you have your cardboard or whatever it is that you're using to make your jig, once you have that covered with packing tape, it doesn't matter if there's wrinkles in it. This really is just a protective cover so that once you put the glue onto it, that it won't stick and you can still remove the piece that you're making. So now that you have it all covered with packing tape, then you are going to take your template. You can either just draw a heart on a piece of paper and trace it onto the board or use it as a template. I'm just going to use my little wood cutout heart that I already have. I'm going to place it here at the corner because I like to be able to use up all this extra space. And you're just going to start to tack it into place. Now, to make this a really sharp point in the top of the heart, I do like to use a little nail or something that's a little bit thinner than a thumbtack, but of course you can just use the thumbtack as well and put it into place just like so. There we go. Then you're going to just use your thumbtacks to follow around to make a little outline of the heart, and I will show you what that looks like. Okay. Once you have it into place, you'll see that it's just held here into place using the thumbtacks. It doesn't really matter how many thumbtacks you use. That's completely up to you. This is your art that you're creating. But since my heart is perfectly symmetrical, I did make sure that I put the thumbtacks in a symmetrical pattern so that it will be even on both sides. If your heart's not symmetrical or you want to do more of a whimsical heart, you can make it odd, totally up to you. I just look to kind of hit the high points to make sure that I really capture the shape that I'm trying to make. And then I just remove these little thumbtacks, remove the template that is being held in place. Usually you can just remove like half of them and slide it out. And now you've got holes in your board that you can replace the thumbtacks into and know exactly where to place them and use this over and over and over again. Now that you've got all of your thumbtacks in place, making the shape that we are going to make, now it is time to grab your first piece of yarn. And then we're going to mix some glue with some water. Now I use an airtight container because I like to just pre-make glue so that I have it ready and on hand whenever I'm doing a project like this. And I use it for a couple different other art projects as well. So you'll just place about a 2-to-1 ratio of glue to water, not a 50-50 mix. That makes it a little bit too runny, but you definitely want to water that glue down so it's not so thick, so that it can get onto the yarn really well, but not be so thick that everything's super sticky and tacky. So water it down till it's like a nice thin kind of runny, but not watery consistency, and it should be perfect. This is not like a recipe kind of thing. This really is just your own trial and error and see what it is that you like to work with. You want it sticky, but not too sticky. Then you are going to take one of your lengths of string, and this one I'm going to do red. So I've got my red thread here, and I'm just going to dip it into the glue. There's really, again, no right or wrong way to do this. I just put it in here. And I like to kind of ease it in this way so that it's pretty easy to come out without getting all tangled up and knotted up whenever it's glued. And then you'll just dip the string into the glue to make sure that it gets down into the glue and that the string gets nice and covered. And then you can hold on to the end piece or just watch wherever it falls into your little glue bucket so you're not fishing around trying to find it again, and just make it easy for yourself. Now, once I dip it all into the glue so that it's all nice and covered, then I just grab my little end piece and begin to wipe off the extra. And then I just lay the wiped off yarn onto a piece of parchment paper. If you have wax paper or foil, you can use that as well. Or if you have a surface that you can just go back and clean over, that's totally fine. I like to use parchment paper as like a placemat when I'm doing gluey projects, because it will not stick to the glue, or the glue will not stick to the parchment paper once it is fully dried. Now, once you have your string here, we can just set the glue mixture back over to the side. You might want to have a little rag around so you can wipe off the extra glue from your fingers. And then you're going to grab your template that we just made, the little jig that we made. And I like to start down here at the bottom peg. I just find that's easiest. And you're going to start with your tip of your yarn here, and you're going to wrap it all the way around, and just make sure you dip under this little top tack that you have in place so that we can really get that little dip to the heart, and just follow the yarn around, and I'll show you. Once you have it wrapped all the way around, you're going to want to keep it tight as you're wrapping it around, and you'll find that it starts to stick to itself. And then what I like to do is kind of wrap it every time that I go around. I kind of try to aim to the bottom so that it stays nice and tight and all these layers are nice and close to each other. But you can also come back around and just tighten it up a bit with your fingers and just make sure that everything is touching well. And then I like to dip my finger back into the glue and then go over the little tail end of the yarn just to make sure that it's really glued there good, so that once this all dries up, it will be held together really sturdy. And you can go back around with your finger dipped in glue and hit any of the edges if you have any little gaps, or just tighten it up a bit. This one's looking pretty good, so I think that it is all set. Now this, you just set to the side and totally let it dry. Usually takes about 12 to 24 hours to dry. I find that if I make it in the morning, by the evening time, it's dry and ready to go. If I make it in the evening, by the time I wake up, it's dried and ready to go. But just set this to the side, and you're gonna know that it's dry whenever it just looks like yarn again. You can see right now, it has a little bit of milky white to it in the places that the glue is. Once this dries, it dries completely clear, and it will just look like yarn again. And that's how you know that it's ready. Now, once that is completely dry, you will have something that looks much like this. So what we do, once this is totally dry, you just remove the thumbtacks, and you will find that the string, the yarn will stick to the thumbtacks just a little bit. You might want to give them like a little twist before you pull them out. But as you pull them out, you will see that it will not stick very well, and they will come right off if you give it just a little bit of a twist. And then be careful because it will be sturdy. The dried yarn will be sturdy, especially if you wrapped it around really well, but it's still, you know, crushable because there's not a lot of, it's just the framework of it. And there you go, you've got your little heart. Now, if you wanted to make this where it was pink on the inside and the outside, then you would just use another 5-foot length of pink yarn. But for this one, I wanted to make it two-toned and I want to wrap red around it. And then for this one, I'm going to use the pink and wrap pink around it when that one's complete. But for now, I'm just setting it to the side so it can dry. And then to wrap the outside string, you're going to follow the same exact procedure. You're going to get your glue. You're going to find your length of yarn that you want to use. Again, I'm going to use red. And then dip it right back into the glue again and wipe it back off again and lay it to the side on your parchment paper, ready to use. All right, now that you have your yarn dipped in glue and wiped off and ready to go, take your little frame that you made, and this is the part in which you need to understand the value of self-trust. Whether you're creating art or you're creating an offering and a service that you want to provide for other people, self-trust is at the core of it. Not everything's going to have exact instructions, and this heart is exactly that same way. To give it that cool wrapped look, let me pull up a contrasting one here. A cool wrapped look, you are just literally going to wrap this yarn all around the frame of the heart in whatever direction it calls to you. The only parts that I would recommend doing with it is that wherever you start at, just hold it into place and then start the wrapping process. And then make sure that you cross back over that spot to hold it into place. And then you are free to move your hands however. And what I do is I just look for where there's like an empty spot, and then that's where I move the string to. So just look for where there's any empty space that needs to be filled up. I like crisscrossy, zigzaggy kind of lines, and wrap this all the way around. Again, no rules. This is just your own unique creative intuition that is at work here. And then find a spot to finish it off wherever that thread ends up lying. If it crosses over, like down here, mine's going to end right here. I kind of tuck it between the layer of two threads that are already there, just to give it a little bit more security, because you want to keep everything nice and tight as you wrap it. And then what I do is, what you can do is take your finger, dip it back into the glue mixture, and just do an extra little dab so it's a little bit more glued in that area. And if you have any spots around the edges that you just want to, you know, reinforce by adding just a little touch of glue, you totally can do that. Boom, 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 just to make sure it doesn't slide off. And then you are all set. Now, what I typically do at this point is find somewhere to hang it to dry. I will use, again, like a little crafting stick or a skewer or a pencil, and just slip it right through a little area so that I can hang it up and let it dry. Again, overnight, around 12 hours, let it dry throughout the day. It'll probably be ready to go by that evening. And then the only thing that's left to do is to add a little loop so that you can hang it up. So I'm just going to set this one to the side here. You could probably dry them flat as well. I just like to hang them up. And then again, make sure that you got something underneath the where you hang them up at, just in case any glue decides to drip off of there. I've not really had a problem with that, but you never know. Then to make the loop, you'll just take about 6 inches of yarn, and you might want to use a little bit more if you want a longer loop, but I find that 6 inches works pretty well for me. And then you're going to just pull that string in half, fold it in half, back to itself, and then do a little loop knot to tie it into place. And then you've got yourself a little loop just like this. And then to put it onto the ornament itself, the little decoration, I'm going to pull this one that I finished off yesterday. What you'll do is just run it through. I like to pick somewhere at the top so it can kind of dangle from the top corner. Pull it through so that you got it halfway through. And then I like to open up the loop and just slip it right through, and then pull it tight, and then there you go. Now you've got a little loop so that you can hang it up. Again, if you wanted to make that bigger, you could have it bigger, but that should do the trick for any of your hanging needs. Also, if you wanted to just leave this little loop off, you can make several of these and just use them as decorations. Like grab several of them and just scatter them on a tabletop if you want to use them for a centerpiece or on a table runner or in table, entertainment center, whatever. Grab a little basket, toss some of these little hearts in there. They can be really, really cute that way too. It's your art, so do with it what you want. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. Another thought that you could do is to take a longer piece of yarn and do a little loop on each of them and hang it up so that it's like a garland. That would be a really cute idea too. Let me know what you decide to do with yours. Now, if you make these, I want to see them. So make sure that you send me pictures. Let me know, have you done this before? Did you enjoy this project? Did you run into any challenges, become aware of how your mind works, try to talk you in a different direction? Or was it just a natural flowing process for you? I want to know how it was for you. And you'll also find that one side you might like better than the other. Then you can just make that the front and the back. Whichever side you want to go forward, I start running the loop through the opposite way. So that then that way, whenever I hang it up, that you're just seeing a nice tidy little loop and not all the handiwork that went with it. All right, so drop in the comments. Let me know, how was this for you? Was this a fun project? I want to know how it turns out for you. Of course, I want to know what you think about those two musts that you have to face in order to create change in your life. So leave some comments below. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a super fun project. I love doing this. I also do this to make stars, to make eggs. I'll show you all of that stuff in future videos. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. All right, see you soon. Bye.